Hello there friends, welcome back to another episode of Generation Tech. My name is Alan. The Empire was in power from 19 BBY and fragmented in 4 ABY and ceased being a major faction just a year later. We could point to many different reasons on why the Empire ultimately failed. We could take a look at moments like the Battle of Yavin, when a bunch of farmers and freighter pilots managed to take down a moon-sized battle station, shattering the Empire's image of invincibility, inspiring millions to join the ranks of the rebellion. Or about the Battle of Endor, when a tiny rebel fleet took out the second Death Star, killing the Emperor. Well, the truth is, the Galactic Empire always outnumbered the rebellion until the very last days of the war, when the last Imperial fleet was finally shattered at Jakku. The rebels really never held an advantage when it came to manpower, and definitely not when it came to the total number of ships or resources they had, until maybe the last few weeks of the war. The rebellion and the new republic that followed it never could have hoped to achieve an actual military victory over the Empire through conventional warfare. Instead, what happened was the Empire's floor and base fell, its economy and civil society, which is why the military collapsed and rotted from within. Ultimately, what happened wasn't that the rebels had gathered enough X-Wings and rebel troopers and finally took over the countless Imperial garrisons that dotted the galaxy. Instead, the civilian populace had enough and rose up on every planetary body in the galaxy. Because as mighty as the Imperial military seemed, on every planet that they occupied, they were generally outnumbered, anywhere from 1 to 100 to 1 to a million. So you can say that Mon Mothma and Luthen Rael understood the real battle being fought for the hearts and minds of the people in the galaxy, and that the true power in the galaxy lay in the people's hands. And it was actually moments like the raid on Aldhani that changed everything, forcing the Empire to crack down with its extremely draconian security measures via the Public Order and Resensiting Directive, which suddenly started rounding up ordinary citizens for the most benign transgressions. Or maybe it was the cruel destruction of Alderaan, a world that many citizens viewed as the cultural and spiritual heart of the galaxy, one of the oldest founding planets of the galactic civilization. Well, truth be told, PORD was seen as an overreaction by many for sure, but not everyone was getting locked up. Sure, the directive probably drove hundreds if not thousands of people towards the rebellion, but those numbers were hardly enough to make a difference in a galaxy-wide war. More than likely, the average citizen just kept their heads down and foolishly believed that if they did nothing wrong, then the Imperial Security Services wouldn't come after them. And as much as people cared about Alderaan, and probably attended charity drives and put frames around their social media profile pictures that said that they cared, most people were probably just happy that their own planet wasn't destroyed in a tragic mining accident. Before we continue, a quick word from our sponsor for today's video. I'm gonna level with you guys. I've been wearing my wife's deodorant for quite some time now. Pretty sure she gets it from an apothecary. That's when people go in the woods and make things in a cauldron. And in all honesty, I'm tired of smelling like sage. Which is why I've turned to Mando, a deodorant formulated by a doctor who figured out that the industry was misdiagnosing and mistreating BO. Mando comes in 4 very nice scents that won't make me smell weak in a crowded elevator. They got bourbon leather, clover woods, Mount Fuji, and Pro Sport. More importantly, this deodorant is clinically proven to control odor better than a shower and soap alone, which you should still use even if you are using deodorant. And like my wife's natural witch salve, Mando is aluminum and paraben free, and you can basically use this high performance deodorant on your entire body, not just your pits. If you get sweaty feet or are terrified of swamp ass, well, this will work fine. Here are some products I can recommend from Mando. First, we got the traditional stick. Notice how it leaves no marks on your skin, which also means no stains on your white tee. Then we have the invisible cream, good for places that the stick doesn't reach. I was going to demonstrate for you guys, but they said I don't need to. Mando also has deodorant wipes, which are kind of cool. Didn't even know these were a thing. Really good at freshening you up. And finally, they have the cleaning bar, which is pH optimized. And now for a limited time, Mando also has a bunch of holiday bundles available for purchase. It's a great gift for a loved one and it also benefits you, because we're all in this together, this fight against BO. Mando's holiday bundles are a great deal for new and returning customers, and just from our followers, Mando is offering an extra $5 off plus free US shipping on orders over $30 when you order at the link in the description and enter code GENTECH at checkout. Thank you for your patience. On to the rest of the video. So what then exactly led to billions if not trillions of citizens in the galaxy finally saying enough is enough? What caused individuals who were reluctant to fight the Empire after PORD, after Yavin and Endor, to finally join the masses that were marching on their local Imperial garrisons? Well, I think it's simple. Their lives had finally been affected, not just by the war, but by Emperor Palpatine's view on governance. And his view has a lot to do with those sweet poisonous words he whispered to Padme Amidala during the Naboo crisis.
Into the bureaucracy, the true rulers of the Republic, and on the payroll of the Trade Federation, I might add. This is where Chancellor Valoran's strength will disappear.
No one really likes bureaucracy, except for some weirdos who enjoy doing spreadsheets during their spare time and, arranging their items in their house by color or alphabetical order. The harsh truth is, without these bureaucrats, the galaxy would completely fall apart. Now, populists like Palpatine take the easy route of attacking the bureaucracy. It's one of the easiest targets in the government system. Of course, no one wants to pay taxes. Of course, no one wants to follow laws, rules, or regulations. But most of us don't spend a lot of time thinking about just how much our daily lives are affected by these armies of mostly normal and well-meaning people who form the bureaucracy. In our modern lives, they literally do everything from providing clean, running water to all of Coruscant's citizens, even the ones that live beneath the surface. They also run the weather services and make sure it rains heavily every Tuesday so that the body fluids on the streets in the Oscuro Entertainment District are swept away into the gutters. I mean, have you ever stepped on hut slime and tracked that shit into your apartment? And you think durians smell bad? What about the officials mapping out and maintaining hyperspace routes so that not only is space travel safe for you, but also for the Ewok cheeks that you're having shipped from the Outer Rim? I mean, you don't want them to spoil on route because of some damn pergola attacks that have jammed up the Corellian trade spire. Honestly, thank God for those Japanese space whalers. The galaxy is truly indebted to you guys. What about Coruscant sanitation? You know how much trash a trillion people creates? I don't know, but it does take an army of garbage worms to consume it all. And also hundreds of artillery crews that literally shoot trash in giant squares into the nearby star. Who, by the way, have to coordinate with air traffic controllers so that the next time you leave Coruscant, you don't get disintegrated by a cube of industrial waste moving close to FTL speeds. And those are only the most visible parts of the bureaucracy that you might see on a daily basis. Most of the stuff that the bureaucracy is doing to make sure that your life is normal goes unseen. I mean, what about the Bureau of Standards, which helps organize a galaxy of millions of worlds to all follow similar metrics, so that there can be trade and exchange and understanding between all species and cultures and worlds? For instance, without the tireless efforts of the Fuel Purity Department, it's very likely that on your next refuel of hypermatter fuel, you're getting something that's cut with industrial waste, which means that you might drop out of hyperspace and run out of fuel on your way to the destination that you're trying to go to, which of course is a death sentence. The bureaucracy, the state, the collection of agencies, departments, and government institutions that take care of everything from the massive elevators that transport people below the surface of Coruscant to the regulators who make sure that all meat in the galaxy that's being sold only contains below a certain percentage of sentient meat. These are the public servants who are the true unsung heroes of the galaxy, whose effort and work goes unseen unless something gets royally screwed up. At which point the masses, who rarely give a thought to these bureaucrats despite enjoying the fruits of their labor, develop anger and hatred, or worse, start developing these conspiracy theories that there's some type of deep state bureaucratic entity that is colluding with evil powers to actively ruin your day, or worse, like depopulate entire planets and do other evil things. When the much easier explanation that is more often factually correct is that these government offices are many times underfunded or just run by flawed and incompetent people. The bad policy decisions that they make, the mistakes that they make, are a reflection of our wider society. For instance, if you have a corrupt and self-serving population like the Hutts, well, just take a look at what life is like on Nal Hutta. There's not really any bureaucracy as much as there's an institution of bribes and corruption. I mean, the bureaucratic system is honestly integral to any modern and developed society, and its health is a direct reflection of how healthy society is. So, one does not need to oppose the bureaucracy. As a matter of fact, we should be highly suspicious of anyone who wants to dismantle or oppose the bureaucratic system. Reform, upgrade, improve, yes, but to run a platform where you directly oppose the bureaucratic system, that should raise eyebrows. Because bureaucratic systems are the most efficient and rational way to organize the activities of sentient beings in large groups and allow for an efficient and fair society. An independent bureaucracy is actually one of the best safeguards against malicious political actors like a dictator. Oftentimes you see in some totalitarian societies where the bureaucracy is preserved, the actual day-to-day activities of the people aren't that widely affected until the dictator starts dismantling the bureaucracy and appointing his own lackeys. For example, the Coruscant Weather Service should provide optimal weekly weather patterns for Coruscant citizens to thrive, including those cleansing rain showers I mentioned. They also provide rain showers for agricultural projects. If a dictator starts getting involved in the bureaucracy, they might say, hey, I want sunshine for the entire month because it's my birthday, which of course would lead to a lot of problems. Or take, for example, the Bureau of Standards. It keeps records of all economic activity in the galaxy so that regional and local governments and businesses can predict what kind of output they need in the next cycle. But Palpatine doesn't want anyone to see that there's a massive amount of resources being siphoned off to the Death Star project, something that the Bureau of Standards has to account for. And so he has these numbers basically hidden, which of course leads to a lot of confusion. And that of course will affect the amount of production that a lot of these producers in the galaxies are making. The bureaucracy, and I really stress this, must not be influenced by any outside political power. It should be rational. It should be rules-based. Its action should be determined by the main goal it was given when it was created. These are the checks and balances that make sure the galaxy is properly running at the local level. These are the things that really affect people. Most populists who try to replace the bureaucracy usually look towards a strongman solution with a dictator at top, with a bunch of lackeys in various government departments serving as an extension to that dictator's political will. As if one individual can handle the complexities of a system that has thousands of different departments, millions if not billions of individuals who are all working to make sure that their specific part of the galaxy is properly run. I mean, all throughout galactic history, when one individual takes on such a Herculean challenge, they fail. They're overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff they have to do. When you don't distribute power and allow other peoples to share in it and help you run the government, then the state falls into disrepair as a result, and this is essentially what happens to the Empire. When Palpatine established the Empire, he sought dominance in every arena of governance in the galaxy. And the bureaucracy was a huge impediment because of the reasons we just mentioned. They were in many ways one of the most powerful forces in the galaxy, and they were relatively politically neutral. It took Palpatine much of his first decade in power to slowly dismantle this bureaucratic network and replace it with his own network of goons and lackeys. The Republic for thousands of years, for instance, was a government system that favored strong planetary rights. You had senators representing the federal interests of entire sectors, but for the most part, individual rulers on each planet had the most say on the day-to-day activities of what was going on their planet. This is why underneath the umbrella of the Republic, this representative democracy, you had parliamentary democracies, you had direct democracies, you had autocracies, you had hive minds, monarchies, and corporate boards. You had everything. On each one of these worlds, you had your own bureaucratic systems making sure that each continent, each city had ample amounts of energy, water, food, and other resources. You had local agencies that ran the security, health system, education system, and while they had some guidance from the federal level, these were all uniquely tailored bureaucratic systems for each individual culture and planet. These are imperfect systems that needed constant reform and improvement and critique, but the Republic lasted for tens of thousands of years because of this system, because of this decentralization of power. Palpatine sought to bypass all of this local governance in the last year of the Clone Wars by passing the sector governance decree. He created a new system of sectorial governorship, individuals that were appointed by Palpatine, not elected by the local systems. Oftentimes, these were just lackeys and loyalists to the Emperor who were tasked with solely maintaining order and rooting out insurgent threats. Some sector governors were also tasked with meeting certain production quotas, whether it was for manufacturing or mining resources. And this, of course, all came at the expense of the well-being of the average citizen and the health of the local economy. Because not only were these governors not really experienced in the jobs they were tasked with and had very narrow objectives that were kind of meaningless at the local level, they were also able to embezzle a ton of credits and steal from the local economy. This was because of the sector governor's own overriding authority in system as direct representatives of Palpatine, and also the destruction of the local bureaucracy to supposedly make things more streamlined for these governors. Gone were the watchdog groups, the media organizations that kept things in check. Gone were the government agencies that oversaw transactions. Now, these sector governors could do anything, acting as mini dictators in their regions. This could mean replacing paid workers in factories with slaves, accepting huge bribes when giving out government contracts, or giving away mining permits. This is a huge wealth transfer directly to just one corrupt individual in each sector. And as everyone got poorer, as the local governments got poorer, what do you think happened to the local infrastructure, to the hospitals, to the clean drinking water? Soon, it wasn't just the downtrodden and poor who were suffering in these areas, it was also the middle class and even upper class, who couldn't properly go about their daily lives, who had basically toxic sludge coming out of their water taps. If you're a dictator and you're smart, you don't dismantle the bureaucracy, you don't challenge them at all. You let those eggheads keep their heads down and focus on what they're doing. I mean, usually the bureaucracy is not politically motivated. They're not a threat. I mean, take a look at the intergalactic banking clans, for instance, who served as the main regulator for all financial transactions in banking and the galactic credit. Before the Sith started meddling with their operations, their main goal was to create a stable environment for financial growth. When Darth Plagueis started infiltrating the IGBC board with his own people and using bank funds to finance extremely risky ventures like the Separatist Alliance at deflated interest rates, he set off a chain reaction of terrible loans that ultimately triggered the largest financial crisis the galaxy had ever seen. I mean, the IGBC in the middle of the Clone Wars was loaning money to both factions who were in turn destroying the monetary value of the other faction. It was like the IGBC was financing the destruction of its own loans and capital. This, of course, led to Palpatine seizing control of the IGBC because it was on the verge of failure, and the bankruptcy of the central banking system in the galaxy, even if it was privatized, would have led to a huge recession, massive unemployment, the complete collapse of the state, and many private sectors as well. It would have been a tragedy. Palpatine's nationalization allowed him to push this failure down the road a little bit more by printing massive amounts of credits and embarking on one of the largest military builds-up in the galaxy, which was also a huge stimulus that got them out of their hole. Of course, what he wasn't telling everyone was that the government was secretly collecting massive amounts of internal debt that basically meant borrowing from many future generations of Imperial citizens. It took more than a decade for Palpatine to take control of the various bureaucratic entities in the Galactic Empire. Once he had complete control, the next decade was a decade of extreme chaos, collapse, and failure. The rebels were a symptom of this massive regression more than they were a cause. And the truth is, the average Imperial citizen was pretty resilient. I mean, even as federal and local coffers started running dry, they found ways to survive. People banded together, tightened their belts, and faced austerity measure with stoic regard. I mean, they had survived the Clone Wars just a decade earlier, after all. And a lot of individuals, entrepreneurs, criminals stepped up where the bureaucratic system failed. A massive black market appeared alongside the highly inflated and inefficient Imperial markets. But ultimately, enough was enough. Palpatine's gross mismanagement of the galaxy is what really doomed the Empire more than anything else. And so the next time you hear about a politician wanting to destroy the system and dismantle the deep state, you have to ask yourself, what exactly is their plan to replace the system in the state, which is fundamental to all of our livelihoods, to our day-to-day survival. Because oftentimes you'll find that these individuals, these populists, have no answer to that question. While they might claim to be champions of the masses and, they want to fight, apparently, for their voters, these individuals just want to seek power. And if you take a look at how belligerently they pursue power, they're oftentimes fools, because only a fool will pursue power in such chaotic means, because you're ultimately beholden to the actions you take while in office, while you're in leadership. And if you perform poorly, if you do a shitty job, as Palpatine did, you might get thrown down a reactor shaft by the very people around you. Because even the most powerful dictatorships are ultimately going to be beholden to the people that they govern. That is just how things work. Well, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification button down below so you don't miss out on the rest of our awesome content. And as usual, my name is Alan, reminding you that my allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy. I'll see you next time.